الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله لا إله إلا الله إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله وحده صدق وعده ونصر عبده وأعز جنده وهزم الأحزاب وحده لا إله إلا الله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا Muhammad وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, we attend this Friday, this holy day, this Jum'ah, thinking about our brothers and sisters around the world. No matter where you look, our brothers and sisters are suffering. No matter where they are, no matter if it is their own people or if it is foreign occupiers. Our brothers and sisters today, this Friday, the second Friday after Ramadan, are all spending it in different ways. And if you looked at the news today, we see that our brothers and sisters in Palestine, the ones who spent their Friday at Masjid al-Aqsa, spent their Friday dealing with tear gas and stun grenades in one of our holiest sites. And we know that our brothers and sisters in Gaza are spending this Friday rebuilding, fixing their homes and burying their family members. And it's in times like these that we must look to our faith for how we should treat and how we should work for our brothers and sisters no matter where they are. The Quran is full of beautiful stories about the way Allah commanded our role models, our prophets, to act in situations in which the only person and the only way they would succeed is through the will of Allah. We understand there's an idea in education that when you tell a story, and telling stories is one of the easiest ways to convey a message and convey a lesson. And we know that our Quran is full of stories. We know that our beautiful holy book is full of stories that many people haven't heard. And many of us teach our children these stories. and teach our families these stories. But when Allah gives us a story, it's important for us to be able to look back at those stories and understand that Allah has multiple messages and multiple ideas that we must take from them. And in the Quran, one of the most told stories is the story of Prophet Musa. Prophet Musa was a prophet to the second largest ummah, Bani Israel. And we know as the people of Ummat Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that we take what happened with Bani Israel and what happened with Musa as an example so that we may do better. In the story of Prophet Musa, we know that Prophet Musa was sent to Bani Israel and he had to deal with the Pharaoh. And when the Pharaoh refused to believe and refused to respect them, Prophet Musa took his people and left. Bani Israel fled Egypt with our Prophet Musa. And we know that the story goes that they finally made it to the sea. And as they made it to the sea, in front of them was the sea and behind them was the army of Pharaoh. Prophet Musa and his people were stuck. And it got to a point where the people around him started to question him, asking him, "What did you bring us to?" And as the people around him are doubting him and the people around him are questioning him, we hear Prophet Musa say, as quoted in the Quran, "Inna ma'ya Rabbi sayahdeen." At this moment when Prophet Musa says that I know that my Lord will guide me, my Lord is with me and he will guide me. Prophet Musa did not know what was going to happen next. And then Allah gives him the wahi. فَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْهِ أَنِ اضْرِبْ بِعَصَاكَ الْبَحْرِ. And that it was brought down to Musa to use his staff and hit the water. Now we all understand that to hit the water for Musa would not have done much. It's the sea. And we can understand the mindset that Prophet Musa had at this point, where he has his people behind him, and his people are worrying, and he has the Pharaoh coming to him in the sea in front of him. And he's told to do one thing, and that is to hit the water with his stick. And of course, Prophet Musa, as we all know, hits the water with his stick. And not only did, through the will of Allah, did he hit this water and it split so that his people could be saved, but after this we also see that Allah destroyed his enemies. Allah destroyed Pharaoh and his army after they entered the sea. The second story that's brought up to us is the story of Bani Israel when they were being oppressed by a much larger force. And the leaders and the elders of Bani Israel went up to their prophet and they said, "Please give us a leader, give us a king, so that we may fight back in the sake of Allah." Their prophet asked them, "What if we bring someone to you and you refuse to fight?" And Bani Israel said, "Of course. Why would we not fight when we are being oppressed?" So the prophet brings them a king, and initially he was not accepted because he was not of a certain class and he was not of a certain standing. But the prophet stood behind this man. And he said that this man has signs that you must accept, and you must accept his leadership and him as your king. And shortly after that, the man of the name of Talut, their king, organizes them to go back and fight against their oppressors. But because there was not much time, he did not have the opportunity to train them in discipline. So the first opportunity Talut got to train these people in discipline, he took it. He tested them with a river and how much they could drink from the river. And the majority of the people who took this test failed. And it went from already being a small army to an even smaller army. And finally, the small force meets on the battlefield with a man by the name of Jalut, or Goliath in English. And when they meet Goliath, not only is Goliath a giant, bigger than everyone else, but his forces are huge. So as this group of people, this disciplined group of people, the ones who pass the test, enter the battlefield, they say, and it's quoted in the Quran, قَالُوا لَا طَاقَةَ لَنَا الْيَوْمَ بِجَالُوتَ وَجُنُودِهِ. They say that there is no way that we will be able to defeat Goliath and his forces today. And in response to them, Allah tells us of a people, of a smaller group within this army, who heard this and stood firm in their belief. Their response was, كم من فئة قليلة غلبت فئة كثيرة بإذن الله. This small group, in the way the Quran describes them, قال الذين يظنون أنهم ملاقو الله. That these people understood that one day they would see Allah. And they would answer to Allah for what happened that day. Their response was, how many times has a small force been able to defeat a larger force through the will of Allah? Indeed, Allah is with those who are patient. And we know that after this, that this group was successful. This group went on to fight Goliath, and we know that from them was the Prophet Dawood, who was able to kill Goliath and lead to the win of his people. And we know that Allah granted them success through this battle, and granted them success against their oppressors. In another story later on in the Quran, in Surah Al Imran, in Surah Maryam, it tells us the story of the mother of Isa alayhi salam, our mother Maryam. We know that Maryam was blessed with having Prophet Isa as a virgin. We know that this is a miracle that was given to Maryam. And we know that in Surah Maryam it talks about her situation, how initially she was very worried. And once she was given the news, she fled. She fled Jerusalem. We know that she went on her way to Bethlehem. And in Surah Maryam, it talks about the problems that happened for her while she was giving birth. And we know that it was so tough on her that the Quran quotes and says, يَا لَيْتَنِي مِتُّ قَبْلَ هَذَا وَكُنْتُ نَسْيًا مَنْسِيًّا. That she said, I wish I had died before this happened to me, and that I was long forgotten. And in that time of struggle for Maryam, the Quran says, فَنَادَاهَا مِن تَحْتِهَا أَلَّا تَحْزَنِي قَدْ جَعَلَ رَبُّكِ تَحْتَكِ سَرِيًّا. That a voice came from under and told her, do not be sad. Indeed, your Lord has granted you sustenance. And we know that that sustenance was water and food in the form of dates. And we know that she was under this palm tree, and as she's giving birth and as she's going through this, she was ordered to just do two things: kick to help get the water up, and to hit the tree. We know she was told to push the tree. But we understand that Maryam wasn't able to push this tree. Maryam going through these birth pains, all she was able to do was hit the tree. But her sustenance was still given to her. Allah still provided for her. And when we talk about these figures in Islamic histories, our prophets and the mother of our Prophet Isa, Allah gives us a very clear lesson that Allah will provide and Allah will make you successful as long as you do your part. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. In these three stories, Allah gave us a clear lesson. In the story of Prophet Musa, when he was going through the stress in dealing with his people and facing Pharaoh, stuck between his people, Pharaoh, and the water, Allah granted him a way out. But when He granted him a way out, Allah made him work for it. Even though Allah didn't need him to hit the water for Allah to split the sea. We all understand this. Allah made him do it. And when we talk about Maryam wasn't even capable of pushing the tree. But she did her part. She tried. And Allah still granted her sustenance. And when we talk about the people of Talut, the people, a small army, facing a much larger force. When push came to shove, when the problems came to them, and they understood that there was no way that they had a way out of this. And people within the army were complaining, even though these were people who had passed the test and were good people. It took a small group from within them to say, Allah will save us. It took a group from within them who understood that one day they would see Allah and they would have to answer to Allah for what they did. In a time of oppression, in a time of pain and suffering, they knew that Allah would ask them what they did. Brothers and sisters, how many times do we think to ourselves that we will have to answer to Allah for what we are going through? For what our brothers and sisters are going through? How many times do we think to ourselves, we need to do our part? Many of us feel helpless. But we're not allowed to feel like that yet. Allah will always grant us a way out as long as we are willing to work. The problem is, many of us don't know how to work. When we see what's going on with our brothers and sisters in Palestine, when we see what's going on with our brothers and sisters all over the world, many of us don't know what to do. And specifically in Palestine, our country is complicit in the murder of our people. The bombs that rain down on Gaza are paid for by American taxpayer dollars. The bullets that are shot at kids in Jerusalem. Even the money that is being used to evict and expel Palestinian families from Sheikh Jarrah is coming from this country. Brothers and sisters, we cannot feel helpless because there is so much we can do. There is so much we are able to do. And it takes us believing in our Lord and understanding that Allah will give us success as long as we are willing to work for it. Brothers and sisters, I come to you today from American Muslims for Palestine. We're a national organization that educates and advocates for Palestine here in America. Brothers and sisters, we've been around for over a decade, and we've been in this community, and we have come here and updated you many times. Brothers and sisters, the support you have given us in the previous years is all coming to light. And all the benefits from it are coming to light, and we've seen it in these past couple of weeks alone. Just before Ramadan, 3 letters in support of Palestinian rights came out of Congress to the State Department. In Ramadan, we got one of the most powerful pieces of legislation in support of Palestinian rights called H.R. 2590, brought out by Congresswoman Betty McCollum. In Ramadan, we also saw a very strong letter come out from Congresswoman Marie Newman from Chicago, who came out and sent a letter with 25 other members of Congress to the State Department demanding justice for the people of Sheikh Jarrah. Brothers and sisters, that is the work that we are doing. That is the work that we must be trying to achieve. And we've seen in this latest struggle against Israeli ethnic cleansing and settler colonialism that more Americans than ever before believe in Palestinian rights. and support the Palestinian people. And as this ceasefire that just began a few hours ago was announced, it's important to understand a ceasefire does not mean the occupation is over, does not mean the oppression is over, does not mean Palestinians are safe. Just today, Israeli forces attacked worshippers in Masjid al-Aqsa. Brothers and sisters, our work is not done. Our work is just beginning. It is our time to build on this momentum and do our job to support our brothers and sisters back home, back in Palestine. Brothers and sisters, it may seem tough. It may seem like there is no way out of the problems we are dealing with, whether they be at an individual level or in supporting our brothers and sisters around the world. But in times like these, we must think to ourselves, and we must understand that one day we will answer to Allah for what we did while our brothers and sisters were struggling. We will have to answer to Allah about our brothers and sisters. And all Allah wants to hear from us is that we do our part. Brothers and sisters, join me after prayers, inshallah, and help support the work for Palestine here in America. Help support our work so that we can answer to Allah one day and say that we did our part to help support our people. Allahumma hdina fi man hadayt, wa afina fi man afayt, wa tawallana fi man tawallayt, wa barik lana Allahumma fi ma a'tayt. اللهم حرر فلسطيننا، اللهم حرر أقصانا، اللهم حرر بلاد المسلمين أجمعين. Oh Allah, we ask you to help our brothers and sisters wherever they may be. Oh Allah, we ask you to help those who are oppressed wherever they may be. Oh Allah, we ask you to make us of those who do our part. Oh Allah, we ask you to make us of those who will be able to testify on the day of judgment that we did what we could for our brothers and sisters. أقول قولي وهذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم وأقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
سووا صفوفكم يرحمكم الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. تلك آيات الله نتلوها عليك بالحق وإنك لمن المرسلين. تلك الرسل فضلنا بعضهم على بعض منهم من كلم الله ورفع بعضهم درجات وآتينا عيسى ابن مريم البينات وأيدناه بروح القدس ولو شاء الله ما اقتتل الذين من بعدهم من بعد ما جاءتهم البينات ولكن اختلفوا فمنهم من آمن ومنهم من كفر ولو شاء الله ما اقتتلوا ولكن الله يفعل ما يريد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. إن الذين قالوا ربنا الله ثم استقاموا تتنزل عليهم الملائكة ألا تخافوا ولا تحزنوا وأبشروا بالجنة التي كنتم توعدون نحن أولياؤكم في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة ولكم فيها ما تشتهي أنفسكم ولكم فيها ما تدعون نزلا من غفور رحيم. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Assalamu alaikum, brothers. As I mentioned in the khutbah, we must be willing to do our part to help our brothers and sisters in Palestine. Brothers and sisters, I'm coming to you from American Muslims for Palestine. We need your support, inshallah, to continue this work. As you know, there are several things going on right now on the congressional level in support of our Palestinian brothers and sisters. AMP has been working to mobilize our community to be a part of this and take action. Over 10,000 people have taken action in the last 24 hours alone in support of these legislations. So I want to ask you, brothers and sisters, to please don't leave without